The large windows of the Celestial Harmony restaurant offered a stunning view of Jupiter's swirling clouds. The space station orbited the massive planet, rotating slowly to maintain artificial gravity. Inside the restaurant, soft blue lights glowed from crystal fixtures, and the gentle hum of conversation mixed with the tinkling of expensive glasses. Olivia Bennett adjusted her black uniform and tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear. She carried a tray of colorful drinks toward table 7 with practiced ease. 5 years of working in this exclusive restaurant had taught her how to move efficiently between tables without drawing attention to herself. "Your nebula spirits," she said quietly, placing the drinks before 3 blue-skinned Moravians. Their thin fingers, each with 6 joints, wrapped delicately around the stemmed glasses. "Gratitude, human," the tallest one said, their voice musical and light. Olivia nodded, politely, and turned away. She had become good at being invisible. The wealthy guests of Celestial Harmony, humans and aliens alike, rarely looked servers in the eye. This suited her perfectly. Being unseen meant being unrecognized, and that was exactly what she wanted. The restaurant manager, Henry Powell, waved her over to the service station. His face looked worried as he straightened his bow tie. "Olivia, the Vexillian party in the private room is getting impatient," Henry whispered. "Their pianist canceled at the last minute, and Mr. Zex Toril is not happy." Olivia glanced toward the private dining area. Through the transparent walls, she could see 8 guests seated around a large circular table. In the center sat Zex Toril, his scaled skin shifting between dark purple and red, a sign of Vexillian agitation. The billionaire trader was infamous throughout 3 solar systems for his bad temper and enormous wealth. "What does he expect you to do about a canceled musician?" Olivia asked. Henry shrugged. "He expects the impossible, as usual. He brought his crystalline piano for the dinner. You know that alien instrument worth more than this entire station? He wanted to show it off while someone played it." The name of the instrument made Olivia's fingers twitch. She had read about crystalline pianos in music journals years ago, but had never seen one up close. They were incredibly rare, created by an ancient Vexillian musical guild using crystals that grew only on their homeworld. "I'll handle their table," Olivia said. "Maybe he'll calm down after the main course." Henry looked relieved. "Thank you. Just be careful. He's brought ambassadors from 4 different worlds. It's an important dinner." Olivia entered the private room with a tray of appetizers. The conversation stopped as she placed the delicate dishes on the table. The smell of exotic spices filled the air. "Finally, sustenance arrives," Zex Toril said, his voice deep and rumbling. His 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, blinked in sequence. "Tell your manager the food is acceptable, but this evening is ruined without music." Olivia kept her eyes down. "I apologize for the inconvenience, sir. Is there anything else I can bring you?" Zex Toril waved a clawed hand dismissively, then paused. His eyes focused on Olivia's hands as she arranged the last plate. "Human," he said suddenly. "Your hands. Show them to me." Surprised, Olivia held, her hands out, palms down. They were slender with long fingers, once her greatest pride, now a painful reminder of what she had lost. Zex Toril leaned forward. "Interesting structure, similar to our pianists." He turned to his guests. "You know, these humans occasionally produce individuals with modest talents. Their hands are so limited, only 5 fingers, yet sometimes they create passable music. An Arcturian ambassador with glowing green skin made a sound like tinkling bells, their version of laughter. I've heard recordings, very primitive rhythms." Olivia kept her expression neutral, though her heart beat faster. She started to withdraw her hands, but Zex Toril pointed to the corner of the room. "Girl, do you see that instrument?" "The crystalline piano, worth more than you would earn in 10 lifetimes." The piano stood on a raised platform. It was unlike any piano Olivia had seen, transparent and seemingly made of countless crystal shards arranged in an organic shape. The The keys were not the traditional black and white but clear crystals that glowed with faint internal light. "It's beautiful," Olivia said truthfully. Zexatoral's scales rippled with pride. "One of 17 in existence. A shame my musician canceled." He studied Olivia with sudden interest. "You find it beautiful? Perhaps you would like to try playing it." The table fell silent. Playing a crystalline piano was not like playing an earth instrument. The crystals responded not just to touch but to the player's bioelectric field. Few humans had ever mastered even the basics. "I couldn't possibly," Olivia began. "Oh, but I insist," Zextoral said, his voice filled with cruel amusement. "In fact, let's make it interesting. Play one simple melody, just one, and I'll give you 10,000 credits." The other guests shifted with interest. 10,000 credits was 5 years' salary for a server. "My friend enjoys his games," said a human diplomat seated nearby, looking embarrassed. "You don't have to." "I want to see what happens," interrupted, a Talaxian with bright orange feathers framing its face. Human attempts at xenomusic are always educational. Olivia stood very still. 5 years of hiding, of being nobody, threatened to unravel. Yet something inside her yearned to touch those crystal keys. "The offer expires in 10 seconds, Zexatoral said, clearly enjoying himself. 9, 8. "I'll do it," Olivia said quietly. The room filled with murmurs as she walked toward the instrument. Several guests activated recording devices on their wrists, eager to capture what promised to be an amusing failure. As Olivia sat on the bench, memories flooded back. Concert halls on Earth, thunderous applause, her name in lights. Then pain, hospitals, and finally, escape into anonymity. The crystal bench adjusted to her height automatically. The keys glowed brighter as she approached, sensing her presence. She placed her hands above them, not touching yet, and felt a strange tingling in her fingertips. Zextoral watched with four-eyed intensity. "Well, we're waiting. Just one melody for 10,000 credits. Surely even a human waitress can manage that." Olivia took a deep breath. The restaurant beyond the private room had grown quieter, as if people sensed something was happening. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Henry looking worried by the door. Her fingers touched the crystal keys. The first note rang out, pure and perfect, filling the room with blue light. The crystalline piano responded to her touch in a way Olivia hadn't expected. It felt alive, as if reaching back to connect with her. She began a simple earth lullaby, one her mother had taught her when she was 4 years old. The crystals glowed with each note, shifting from blue to purple to gold. The sound was like nothing the guests had heard, both familiar and alien at once. Then, without conscious thought, Olivia's damaged hands began to remember. Her fingers moved faster, incorporating complex patterns that she once performed in concert halls. The lullaby transformed, expanding into something greater. The pain in her hands faded as the piano seemed to anticipate her movements, the crystals compensating for her limitations. Zexatoral's expression changed from amusement to confusion to astonishment. The recording devices captured every moment, as the waitress revealed herself to be something entirely unexpected. Olivia closed her eyes and played on, unaware that her simple acceptance of a cruel challenge was about to change everything. The music filled the private dining room, flowing outward through the restaurant. Servers stopped mid-step. Conversations halted. Even the kitchen staff emerged to listen. The crystalline piano responded to Olivia's touch in ways that stunned the watching aliens. The transparent instrument glowed with shifting colors that pulsed with each note. Olivia's mind drifted back 5 years as her fingers moved across the crystal keys. She remembered her life before the accident, before she became just another server on a space station. She had been Olivia Bennett Cadwell then. Born in Chicago to a music teacher and an engineer, her talent had shown itself early. By age 7, she performed with orchestras. By 16, she composed her own music. People called her the future of human music, a bridge between classical traditions and new forms. She understands music mathematically, her instructors would say, but she plays it from the soul. At 23, she had been selected for the first human Talaxian cultural exchange. The Talaxians, with their feathered crests and four-chambered vocal systems, valued music above all other arts. Having a human pianist play at their grand nest was considered a great honor. The memory of that day came back sharply. The excitement. The massive stage constructed specially for the event. The thousands of orange-feathered Talaxians watching. She had begun to play her original composition, something she'd created specifically to appeal to both human and Talaxian hearing ranges. Then came the cracking sound. The support beam failure. The stage collapsing. Olivia's hands trembled on the crystal keys as the memory washed over her. The piano seemed to sense her distress, the notes deepening to a richer, more complex sound. In the hospital afterward, the doctors had explained the damage. The nerve pathways in her hands were severely injured. Standard treatment could restore basic function, but the precise control needed for concert-level playing was gone forever. Or so they said. Remarkable, whispered the Arcturian ambassador, interrupting Olivia's memories. The green glow of their skin had brightened in response to the music. Zexatoril sat motionless, all four eyes fixed on Olivia's hands. His scales had shifted to a deep blue color, a sign of intense concentration among Vexillians. Olivia's simple melody had evolved into something complex and beautiful. Without thinking, she began incorporating alien musical elements she'd heard over her years working in the restaurant. The Moravian harmonic sequences, the rolling Talaxian thunderbeats, even Vexillian tonal shifts that were normally beyond human hearing range. The crystalline piano made it possible. The instrument adjusted to her limitations, amplifying her strengths. When her damaged nerves couldn't make the precise movements needed for certain notes, the crystals responded to her intention rather than her touch alone. Outside the private room, the restaurant's AI system detected the unusual acoustic phenomenon. It automatically adjusted the environmental settings to enhance the sound quality and began broadcasting the music throughout the Celestial Harmony station. In lounges, corridors, and private quarters, humans and aliens alike paused to listen to the unexpected concert. Henry Powell stood by the door of the private dining room, his mouth slightly open in shock. He'd hired Olivia 5 years ago when she applied with no references and a simple request. "I just need work, somewhere quiet." He had never asked about the faint surgical scars on her hands. Now he understood what she had been hiding. The Talaxian ambassador rose from the table, orange feathers expanded in emotional display. In the musical tradition of their kind, they began to accompany Olivia with a soft harmonic trill from their four-part throat. The sound blended perfectly with the piano notes. This spontaneous duet sparked something new. A human diplomat at the table began tapping a rhythm on the crystal, tabletop adding a gentle percussion. An elderly Moravian closed her 8 eyes and added a haunting whistle that weaved between the notes. What had begun as a cruel challenge transformed into the first truly cross-species improvisational concert in the station's history. In the main restaurant, a woman with silver-streaked black hair stood up from her table. Grace Cole was the leading xenomusicologist from Earth, author of Harmonic Bridges Music Across Species. She moved closer to the private room, her trained ear recognizing the technical brilliance behind what she was hearing. "It can't be," she whispered, peering through the transparent wall. "Olivia Bennett Cadwell?" Inside, Olivia had surrendered completely to the music. The pain that normally throbbed in her hands after even simple tasks had vanished. The crystalline piano seemed to heal as it responded, creating a feedback loop between player and instrument that the Vexillians who crafted it had theorized but never fully achieved. As the piece approached its natural conclusion, Olivia added, elements from each world represented at the table: a Vexillian closing flourish, an Arcturian resonant fade, and finally, a simple human coda that echoed the lullaby she had started with. The final note hung in the air for several seconds. Throughout the station, people and aliens held their breath until the sound finally faded. Silence followed, then an explosion of response. In the private room, the assembled diplomats burst into their species' versions of applause. Human hand-clapping, Moravian wing fluttering, Talaxian throat trilling, and the deep rumbling hum of Vexillian appreciation. Olivia opened her eyes, coming back to herself. The past 5 years of hiding, of being no one, had been stripped away in minutes. She looked down at her hands on the crystal keys. They showed no sign of the tremors that usually followed even the simplest manual tasks. Sexatoral rose from his seat. The Vexillian businessman was known throughout 3 solar systems for his arrogance and disdain toward other species, particularly humans. But now his scales had shifted to gold, a color reserved for moments of profound respect in Vexillian culture. He approached the piano slowly. "Who are you?" he asked, his deep voice unusually soft. Before Olivia could answer, the door to the private room slid open completely. Grace Cole walked in, ignoring protocol and security measures. "She's Olivia Bennett Cadwell," Grace announced. Every head turned toward her. The most brilliant pianist Earth produced in a generation, before the Talaxian exchange accident. The Talaxian ambassador's feathers flattened against their head, a sign of deep shame. "The stage collapse, that was you?" they asked Olivia. "Our entire cultural ministry resigned in disgrace after that incident. We were told the human musician had recovered." "Physically recovered," Olivia said quietly, her first words since she began playing. "But not." She looked down at the piano, then back up at the curious faces around her. "Not as a musician." Sexatoral's upper right eye narrowed. "Yet you just played my crystalline piano better than anyone I've heard in 50 cycles. How is this possible with damaged neural pathways?" From the doorway, Grace Cole stepped closer. "I have a theory about that," she said, scientific curiosity brightening her eyes. Outside the private room, a crowd had gathered. The station's residents, human and alien alike, pressed close to see the source of the music that had moved them all. Henry Powell tried vainly to restore order as the evening took an unexpected turn. The simple dinner with a cruel challenge had become something historic. The private dining room could no longer contain the gathering crowd. Station security arrived to maintain order, but even they seemed moved by what had happened. The restaurant manager suggested moving to the station's grand observation lounge, and Sexatoral agreed with unexpected politeness. 2 hours later, Olivia sat on a comfortable chair in the large domed room with windows showing Jupiter's swirling clouds and distant stars. The crystalline piano had been carefully moved to a central position. Around her sat an unusual collection of beings: diplomats, musicians, scientists, and curious station residents. Grace Cole sat beside Olivia, her datapad filled with notes. The xenomusicologist could barely contain her excitement. "It shouldn't be possible," Grace said, studying readings from a small scanner she had run over Olivia's hands. "The nerve damage is still present. By all medical understanding, you shouldn't have the fine motor control needed for that level of playing." The Talaxian ambassador leaned forward, orange feathers catching the light. "Yet she played. We all heard it." Sexatoral remained unusually quiet. His personal assistant had brought in more of his collection, data crystals containing recordings of Vexillian master musicians. They played these for comparison, and everyone agreed that Olivia's performance had matched or exceeded them. "I have a theory," Grace said finally. "The crystalline piano isn't just an instrument. The crystals have properties we don't fully understand. They may be semi-sentient." A murmur ran through the gathered crowd. Olivia looked at the beautiful instrument with new understanding. "You're suggesting the piano helped her play?" asked a human scientist who had joined the growing audience. Grace nodded. "Exactly. It created a neural bridge, compensating for the damaged pathways. But that doesn't explain everything. The piano needs something to work with. Musical knowledge, talent, intention. Olivia provided those." Sexatoral finally spoke, his voice softer than before. "In Vexillian musical tradition, we have stories of this. Our ancient masters spoke of instruments that chose their players. We dismiss these as myths." He gestured toward Olivia with a clawed hand. "Perhaps we were wrong." The Talaxian ambassador stood suddenly. This changes nothing about our responsibility. They turned to Olivia. The Talaxian unity bears the shame of your injury. We offer immediate access to our medical technology. Though we cannot fully restore what was lost, we have treatments not yet shared with humans that may help. A buzz of conversation filled the room. Interspecies medical technology sharing was rare and heavily regulated. The offer is generous, said a human diplomat cautiously. But there are treaties about technology transfers. This would be a special case, the Talaxian insisted, a correction of a past wrong. While the others debated, Olivia looked at her hands. For 5 years, she had lived with constant reminders of what she had lost, the pain after even simple tasks, the tremors that sometimes made holding a glass difficult. She had accepted a life of limitations. "May I try playing again?" she asked quietly. The room fell silent. Zexatoril nodded, moving aside to clear her path to the piano. Olivia approached the instrument, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room. The crystal keys glowed as she came near, seeming to welcome her. This time she was fully conscious of the connection forming between herself and the piano. She began to play a piece she had composed before her accident, one she had never performed publicly. Her fingers moved across the keys, and she could feel the moment when the crystals began to compensate for her damaged nerves. It was like a gentle current flowing between the piano and her hands, creating a bridge where her own body could not. As she played, the station's AI system activated, sensors throughout the room, capturing data from both Olivia and the piano. Graphs and charts appeared on screens around the lounge, showing energy patterns and neural interactions that science had never recorded before. The human scientist pointed to one display. "Look at this. The crystalline structure is creating a feedback loop with her nervous system, enhancing signals that would otherwise be too weak to control fine movement." Grace Cole was recording everything, her eyes wide with wonder. It's not just technical, though. The emotional content of the music is driving the connection. The piano is responding to her intent, not just her physical input. Olivia played on, losing herself in the music but also aware of what was happening in a way she hadn't been during her first performance. She could feel the crystal responding, adapting, helping. But she also sensed it was learning from her, evolving with each note. As the piece ended, she looked up to see Zexatoril standing very close, studying the interaction with intense interest. 10,000 credits seems insufficient now, the Vexillian said. What happened here tonight is worth far more. Olivia shook her head. I didn't do this for money. No, Zexatoril agreed. You did it for music, which is why I have a different proposal. His scales shifted to a deep purple, a color used in Vexillian business discussions. I own 7 research facilities across 3 systems. I offer you access to all of them plus the piano itself. Gasps rippled through the room. The value of the piano alone was astronomical. You would give away your crystalline piano? Asked an Arcturian diplomat in disbelief. Not give away, Zexatoril corrected. Invest. What we witnessed tonight could revolutionize both interspecies music and neural interface technology. He turned to Olivia. I propose a partnership, your musical, knowledge combined with research into how the crystals interface with your nervous system. The offer stunned Olivia. After years of hiding and accepting her limitations, the path forward seemed to open suddenly before her. The station's director, who had arrived to investigate the unusual gathering, stepped forward. The Celestial Harmony Station would be honored. To host such research, we have excellent facilities. I would want to be involved, Grace Cole added quickly. This crosses into so many fields: music theory, xenobiology, neuroscience. The Talaxian ambassador nodded. And our medical offer stands. Combined with this research, we might develop treatments that could help others with similar injuries. Olivia looked around at the eager faces, human and alien alike. For 5 years she had lived in shadows, believing her greatest gift was lost forever. Now, in a single evening, everything had changed because a wealthy alien had intended to humiliate a waitress. I need time to think, she said honestly. Zextoral's scales rippled with amusement. Of course, though I warn you, recordings of your performance are already spreading throughout the station and beyond. By morning, you may have offers from every research institute in human space. The Vexillian's prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. A chime sounded, and the station's AI announced an incoming priority communication from Earth. "It's the Interstellar Arts Foundation," the station director said, checking the message. "They're requesting to speak with Olivia Bennett Cadwell immediately." Olivia took a deep breath. Her years of anonymity were truly over. Whatever she decided next would set her on a new path, one that might help others with injuries like hers, one that might create new connections between species. She glanced at the crystalline piano, still glowing softly as if waiting for her return. "I'll take the call," she said. 3 weeks passed quickly. Olivia's life transformed from the quiet routine of a waitress to the busy schedule of a research subject, musician, and sudden celebrity. The Celestial Harmony Station had converted a large storage area into a temporary research lab where scientists from different species worked together to understand the connection between Olivia and the crystalline piano. Morning light from Jupiter filled the lab as Olivia sat at the piano. Small sensors attached to her hands, head, and along her spine recorded her neural activity. Across the room, screens displayed colorful patterns of her brain waves and nerve impulses. "Try the new composition again," Grace Cole suggested, adjusting settings on her equipment. "Focus on the middle section where the tempo changes." Olivia nodded and began to play. The piece was her own creation, a blend of Earth classical music with alien tonal structures. As her fingers moved across the crystal keys, she felt the now familiar sensation of the piano connecting with her nervous system, strengthening signals that her damaged nerves could no longer carry effectively. Dr. William Kent, a neural specialist who had arrived from Earth a week ago, watched the readings with fascination. "Amazing. The crystal matrix is actually creating new pathways around the damaged areas. It's like having an external nervous system extension." "But only for music," Grace pointed out. "We tested other fine motor tasks. Without the piano, her limitations remain unchanged." The Vexillian research team worked at a nearby table, analyzing samples from the piano's crystal structure. Zextoral himself visited daily, his initial arrogance replaced by genuine scientific curiosity. The Talaxian medical treatment had helped reduce Olivia's chronic pain, though it couldn't repair the fundamental nerve damage. Still, without constant pain, she found her mood and energy greatly improved. When she finished playing, the small audience of researchers and assistants applauded. "The recording is perfect," said Luis Mendez, a sound engineer. "We'll add it to the data package for the Earth team." Olivia stretched her fingers, feeling only minor discomfort, a vast improvement from the past 5 years. "Tomorrow we begin testing with the modified keyboard," Dr. Kent reminded everyone. "If our theories are correct, the new prototype should establish a similar neural connection without requiring the full crystalline piano." The prototype sat covered on a nearby workbench, a human keyboard modified with crystal elements from Zextoral's collection. If successful, it might offer hope to others with similar injuries. After the morning session ended, Olivia headed to the station's communications center for her weekly call with the Interstellar Arts Foundation. The organization had offered to sponsor concerts once the research reached a suitable stage. As she walked through the station corridors, people nodded respectfully or smiled in recognition. Her story had spread throughout human space and beyond. Several news services had run features about the piano waitress, who had stunned the interstellar community with her hidden talent. Many were inspired by her journey, especially those with injuries or disabilities. A group of children from a rehabilitation center on Mars had sent artwork showing Olivia playing the piano among the stars. She was finishing her call when a station attendant approached. "Ms. Bennett Cadwell, you have visitors at Dock 7. They've just arrived from Earth." Olivia felt a surge of anxiety. She hadn't told many people about her new location, and the station usually screened visitors carefully. When she reached Dock 7, she stopped in surprise. Standing by the airlock were her parents, Daniel Bennett and Maria Cadwell. Her mothers, eyes filled with tears as they embraced. You disappeared, her mother said softly. 5 years without a word. I'm sorry, Olivia whispered. I couldn't bear for you to see me fail, to see me as less than I was. Her father shook his head. You were never just a pianist to us. You were our daughter. They moved to the station's garden area, a peaceful space with plants from various worlds. Olivia explained everything, her depression after the accident, her decision to change her name slightly and disappear, and the strange twist of fate that had led to her discovery. We never stopped looking, her father said. Every year on your birthday we would check hospitals, employment records, anything we could access. Why didn't you contact us after the performance went public? Her mother asked. We found out from the news like everyone else. Olivia looked down. Shame, I think, and habit. I'd spent so long hiding. Her father took her hand, carefully avoiding the areas where the nerve damage was worst. No more hiding. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The emotional reunion was interrupted by Olivia's communicator. Grace Cole's voice came through, excited and breathless. Olivia, you need to come to the lab immediately. The Vexillians found something incredible in the crystal structure. When Olivia and her parents arrived at the lab, they found an atmosphere of controlled excitement. Zexitoral stood with his research team around a magnified display of the piano's crystal matrix. There, the Vexillian pointed with a clawed finger. The structure has changed. Dr. Kent explained to Olivia. The crystals are reorganizing at the molecular level. They're adapting specifically to your neural patterns. Grace added, it's beyond adaptation. The piano is evolving with each session. It's learning you as much as you're learning it. Zextoral's scales shifted to bright gold, a sign of great excitement. In all our history, this has never been documented. The instruments were thought to be static creations. What does this mean practically? Olivia's father asked, looking protectively at his daughter. It means, Grace said slowly, that the connection between Olivia and the piano will likely grow stronger. The neural bypass effect could become more efficient, possibly extending to other types of movements beyond playing music. And the prototype? Olivia asked, looking at the covered keyboard. Dr. Kent shook his head. We need to reconsider its design based on these findings. The crystals aren't just conductors. They're more like living circuits that grow and change. The Talaxian ambassador, who had remained involved with the project, suggested, we should organize a public demonstration, show what human and alien cooperation can achieve. Olivia felt overwhelmed. What had begun as a simple challenge in a restaurant had expanded beyond anything she could have imagined. Research papers were being written, new theories of cross-species, musical communication were developing, and she, once hiding in shadows, stood at the center of it all. Her mother squeezed her hand. You don't have to decide everything today. Olivia nodded gratefully, but her mind was already moving forward. Actually, I think the Talaxian is right. A concert, not just a research demonstration, but a true musical event. Something that brings together human and alien musical traditions. Zextoral considered this. The Vexillian High Council would be interested. They rarely leave our homeworld, but for something unprecedented. Europa Station has a proper concert hall, Grace suggested, larger than anything we have here. As the others discussed logistics, Olivia walked over to the crystalline piano. She placed her hands on the keys without pressing them, feeling the gentle response of the crystals to her presence. The instrument that had once belonged to a wealthy collector as a status symbol now represented something far greater, a bridge between damaged nerves and musical expression, between different species and their unique ways of experiencing sound. We'll need to compose something new, she said, interrupting the excited conversations around her. Something that speaks to all our different physiologies and cultures. The room fell silent as everyone turned to her. I think I'm ready to try, Olivia said. The Europa concert hall glowed with soft blue lighting as the final preparations came together. 2 months of intensive work had transformed a scientific curiosity into a cultural event unlike any before it. Representatives from 17 species, filled the grand space, their various body shapes accommodated by specially designed seating. The air mix had been carefully balanced to suit different breathing requirements, and translation systems ensured everyone could understand the program. Notes backstage. Olivia stood in a simple white dress, her hands steady thanks to the new Talaxian treatments. The chronic pain had faded to a manageable level, though the fundamental nerve damage remained. She looked at her reflection in a mirror and barely recognized herself compared to the waitress who had hidden in plain sight just months ago. Grace. Cole adjusted equipment nearby, working with a team of technicians to ensure the performance would be properly documented. All sensors are calibrated, she reported. We'll capture every detail of the neural interface effect. Dr. Kent checked the readings on his medical scanner. Your nervous system looks good. Remember to take breaks if needed. Olivia nodded gratefully. The intensive rehearsals had pushed the limits of what her damaged hands could do, even with the piano's assistance. But tonight was worth the effort. Her parents entered the preparation room, her mother carrying a small box. A gift, her father said. Something old for your new beginning. Inside was a pendant, a small crystal set in silver that had belonged to her grandmother. It seemed appropriate, her mother said, helping Olivia put it on. Another kind of crystal, to accompany you tonight. The stage manager, a tall woman named Kelly, appeared at the door. 5 minutes, Ms. Bennett Cadwell. As Olivia prepared to leave the room, Zexatoril arrived. The Vexillian businessman looked different from the arrogant figure who had challenged her in the restaurant. His expensive clothes were the same, but his posture and scale coloration showed a new respect. The Vexillian High Council has arrived, he informed her. They rarely leave our homeworld. Your performance tonight has created unexpected diplomatic opportunities. That wasn't my intention, Olivia said honestly. I just wanted to make music again. Zextoril's scales rippled with what she now recognized as amusement. The greatest achievements often begin with the simplest desires. He held out a small crystal shard, a piece from the first crystalline piano ever created. For luck, as humans, say, Olivia accepted the gift with surprise. Such artifacts were priceless in Vexillian culture. The call came to take positions. As she walked toward the stage, the Talaxian ambassador joined her briefly. Whatever happens tonight, they said, their feathers shifting in formal patterns, you have already healed old wounds between our peoples. The main lights dimmed as Olivia took her place on stage. The crystalline piano waited at the center, glowing with internal light. Behind it stood members of the newly formed interspecies orchestra, musicians from 7 worlds who had worked with Olivia to create something new. The audience fell silent as Olivia sat at the piano. For a moment, she thought of her journey, from child prodigy to injured has-been to waitress to this unexpected new role. Then she placed her hands on the crystal keys and felt the familiar connection form, stronger than ever. She began to play the new composition, Bridges Between Stars. The first movement started with a simple human melody that slowly incorporated elements from other worlds. The crystalline piano responded perfectly, the neural interface allowing her damaged hands to express exactly what her mind intended. The orchestra joined gradually. First the Talaxian wind section, then Moravian string instruments, followed by the resonant tones of Arcturian percussion. Each species' contribution was distinct yet harmonized with the others in ways that traditional music theory said should be impossible. In the audience, Olivia could see her parents sitting near the front row. Behind them were faces both human and alien, scientists who had worked on the research, station staff who had known her as just a waitress, and diplomatic representatives interested in the cultural and scientific implications. As the composition moved into its central theme, Olivia felt the piano's crystals grow warmer under her fingers. The connection between her nervous system and the instrument deepened. On screens visible to the audience, colorful displays showed the real-time interaction, how the piano created pathways around her damaged nerves, how it anticipated her musical intentions and helped manifest them. For the audience, the visual data enhanced their understanding of the music. For different species with different hearing ranges, It created a shared experience that transcended biological limitations. The final movement began with a solo section where Olivia demonstrated the full capabilities of the neural interface. The music became more complex than human hands alone could play, utilizing microtones that required impossible finger positions, creating harmonics that would normally need 3 or 4 hands. As she played, something unexpected happened. The neural connection grew stronger than ever before, and Olivia felt the piano not just compensating for her injuries, but somehow allowing her to sense the audience's emotional responses. The feedback loop extended beyond her hands to include the listeners themselves. She adjusted the music instinctively, responding to the emotional data flowing back through the crystal matrix. The Vexillian section became richer when she sensed their attention peak. The human melodies gained depth when she felt her parents' pride and wonder. The scientists monitoring the phenomenon watched in amazement as their instruments recorded what shouldn't have been possible, a genuine emotional feedback loop between performer, instrument, and audience. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of profound silence. Then the applause began, a beautiful cacophony of different species expressing appreciation in their own ways. The Talaxians trilled, the Moravians fluttered their wing-like appendages, and the Vexillians created deep, resonant hums. Olivia stood and bowed, then gestured to the orchestra behind her. They had created something that would outlive this single performance, a new form of musical communication that bridged biological and cultural differences. As she accepted the standing ovation, Olivia thought of the restaurant where her journey had begun, how a wealthy host's cruel challenge had ultimately led to this moment of connection across species. From a simple waitress told to play an impossible instrument to a pioneer in interspecies communication. Backstage after the performance, the scientific team gathered around their data displays, already discussing implications and next steps. Grace Cole looked up from her readings with excitement. "The neural interface effect is spreading," she said. The audience members' brain scans show temporary adoption of cross-species neural patterns during the performance. They were literally beginning to understand each other's emotional responses to music. The Talaxian ambassador nodded. "We felt it. A bridge not just of sound, but of understanding." Zex Toril approached with members of the Vexillian High Council. "We would like to fund a permanent research institute," he announced, "not just for the music, but for the neural technology. It has applications far beyond performance." Olivia's parents stood nearby, watching their daughter become the center of a new scientific and cultural movement. Her mother leaned close and whispered, "Are you happy?" Olivia looked at her hands, still damaged, still limited, but now part of something much larger than herself. Through her injury, she had found a new way to create music and connection. "Yes," she said simply. "I found my way back to music, but it's a bigger path than before." Above them, through Europa Station's transparent dome, the stars shone brightly. Billions of points of light separated by vast distances, yet part of the same cosmic dance. Like the different species now finding common ground through music, they were both separate and connected. Olivia had one more surprise prepared. She turned to the gathered researchers and diplomats and said, "I've been working on a teaching program for others with nerve injuries like mine. The first students arrive next month." In that moment, what began as one waitress playing one piano expanded into the future, a future where music would help heal divisions not just between injured nerves but between worlds.